Hello and welcome to a very special Peer Workers United support group, which is a group for peer professionals. Hi. It's a group for peer professionals from all over the nation of the United States and Canada. And today we're gonna start off our special series of Heroes in Peer Support with our guest Charisse Rupert from Wings Across Alabama. Charisse is the executive director of Wings Across Alabama, and she has a very interesting story about how she got all the way over there to that high level position. All right. So without further ado, Charisse, take it away.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for this opportunity. This is amazing. And as I was sharing a few minutes ago, when I logged in and you all saw my Hello Kitty background, I'm grateful not only for this opportunity to share, but an opportunity just to be my authentic self. So being able to have my Hello Kitty background up is just awesome because typically in the work that I do, I'm not able to have that up. So thank you all for that. Thank you all for this space and this place. Um, so I am in Alabama. I'm from Alabama, a small town in lower Alabama. Sometimes I say I'm from LA just to get people's attention, and then I tell them not California, but Alabama. But my story started as a child. Um, I was raised by my grandparents. My parents were in college. And so there was no trauma, as most of us would think of nowadays. But for me, even at a young age, I felt something was missing, something was wrong, something was different. I've over the years talked to people and I've talked to individuals who their parents may have been on drugs and things like that, and that kind of shaped them. But for me, my parents were in college. They were doing something positive, but it still affected me in a way that I know they had no idea that it would. So being with my grandparents, one of my earliest memories is being 5 or 6 years old, going in the kitchen and seeing that Reynolds foil box and self-harming. And of course, back then I didn't know that's what it was. Um, I just did it and it made me feel better. I couldn't explain it. I didn't know how to define it. And I definitely could not share that with anyone else. But that was when I began to self-harm at a very young age. Um, Again, I was surrounded by love, but I didn't feel loved. I felt different. Um, I spent a lot of time by myself. I wasn't able to really communicate with people the way I do now. I talk a whole lot now. Back then, I didn't. I was very shy, and that affected me negatively as I went on middle school, high school. I got bullied. There were kids that thought I was stuck up and things like that, but in actuality, I was just shy, very, very shy. And so I stayed to myself and lived in this kind of fantasy world. I got accustomed to watching TV and I loved watching TV. I love seeing people. I learned about people and how they interact and how they feel and how they share. But when it came to me being in front of people and then those people wanted me to interact, it was like, oh, I don't know what to say. I have no idea. Um, a small example of that, during high school, this guy was walking past me and he said, "What's up?" And I'm just like, do I say what's up back? Do I say not much? What's up with you? Do I just do like the head nod? So simple things like that were kind of difficult for me back then. Um, and so my grandmother passed away, which was the first very difficult thing I had to deal with. And so then I was with my mother and my stepfather, which was fun. He played for what is now my all-time favorite NFL team, the Green Bay Packers. That was an amazing time. So going from Alabama to Wisconsin was great. Watching the games, being there, it was awesome. And that was really the last time my life was quote unquote normal. Um, they ended up getting a divorce. And my stepfather came in my room and he told me that he was going to be leaving. They were divorcing. And the only thing I could think to say to him in that moment was actually a question. I said, "Well, does that mean I have to take the trash out now?" Just as odd as it could be. And I didn't know how to express to him that I loved him, that I would miss him. I was disconnected from my own feelings and emotions, and they were overwhelming for me. So after they divorced, that's when all hell broke loose. I started running away from home. I was raised in one of the best neighborhoods in Birmingham, and I would run away to one of the worst neighborhoods, which definitely was not safe for someone who was 14, 15 years old. But I did that, and that's when I started drinking alcohol, smoking marijuana, and I was seeking something. And again, it's only in retrospect that I can explain it that way, because in those moments, I really didn't have language for it. I would just leave. I would just run away. After running away many times, I ended up in a behavioral health facility. And unfortunately, that really didn't help me much, because from their perspective, I wasn't being abused. I came from a very good home. And so I was basically labeled a spoiled brat. She's just rebelling and things like that. So didn't really get any help during those times. So I continued to run away until finally at the age of 17, I got pregnant with my first child. And so during all those years where I would watch TV and spend a lot of time by myself and just thinking, I would just thinking all the time. Um, if I had my own family, it would be great. So get pregnant with my first child. Shortly after that, met someone. We got married after knowing each other exactly 2 months, 2 weeks, and 2 days. We ended up having eventually three more children. He adopted my oldest son. And so I thought, this is it. This is it. He joined the military. We're headed to Germany. I'm a stay-at-home mom, wife. I love it. Why wouldn't I be happy? This is what I've always wanted. I had two boys, one girl, wonderful family. Why would I not be happy? But I still wasn't. There was still this deep emotional pain I was feeling. I remember one instance while we were in Germany and my daughter was still pretty young, and I breastfed her, and she was crying, and my husband was like, "She's crying. She typically didn't cry." And I said, "Well, you need to get accustomed to feeding her with a bottle, because I'm not going to be here. I want to kill myself." And his response was, "Well, if you're going to do it, just do it." So I didn't have that support from him at that time. Finally, I guess because my behavior was so um, out of sorts, he finally took me to see a psychologist on base, and I felt hope. I felt hope for the first time going into that appointment, only to get in the car headed back home for him to say to me, "No pill is going to help you." And so that was like just this shattering moment for me. And what followed were more years of instability in all areas of my life. I ran away as an adult. Who does that? I did. After we left Germany, I ended up going to Boston, ran away adult. I'm an adult. I ran away from my mother's house as an adult, and ended up just seeking something, but I don't think I knew what it was. I thought I knew, but then when I had what it was I thought I'd been seeking, I still had this pain. And so I continued to suffer, ended up in drug addiction, crack cocaine addiction, and just I lost my children, didn't have my children with me, and just really lost and not knowing what to do. Um, and there was one day when I was on the phone with my mother, and she said to me, she said, "Charisse, if you die in active addiction, I'm not going to lie to your children. I'm going to tell them that you chose crack cocaine over them." And I said, "But Mama, I didn't." But I did. I was. That's what I was doing. I just couldn't see it. And again, that deep, deep emotional pain was just so overwhelming. even in the midst of me being in active addiction and staying at hotels and things like that, and seeing mothers and families and seeing the children, I couldn't even get on the elevator with them. It was too much. So I just kept getting high so that I wouldn't feel the pain I was feeling, and I wouldn't think about the fact that, yes, I'm hurting, me as a lone individual. But when I would start to think about, by that time I had 5 children, think about these 5 little people who are wherever they were, wondering, when is mama coming back? It was too much. And so continued to suffer until around 2008, when I made my way back here to Birmingham, Alabama. Was in a homeless shelter, just trying to stay alive at that point. But that homeless shelter had a mental health center connected to it, and I started going there and finally receiving treatment. And so went through that process, started to learn about my mental health challenges. I was kind of disconnected from them, and not really having a good grasp on what was going on. Why am I feeling this way? Why am I doing these things? And from there, I went to treatment. So I went to treatment for the first time in 2008, and going back to the TV. So on TV, at least the way that I perceived it, when I would see people that had struggles with drug addiction, they go to treatment and then they zap you and then you just go back to your life. So that's what I thought it was supposed to be, but it wasn't. So I ended up relapsing. But between the time that I started treatment and when I relapsed in 2011, I got a job at the treatment center. Now, keep in mind, I'd always been stay-at-home wife and mother, and I never really had to work. And so being given that opportunity was just amazing for me, to think that I actually have something to offer. So I began working, it's called Fellowship House here in Birmingham. Started working entry level position as a program assistant. Few months later, case manager without a degree. Shortly after that, intake case manager. And it was just amazing. But again, I say I didn't have a degree. I went to college a few times because of the undiagnosed mental health challenges, never completed college. And so when I wanted to go back to college, I remember I was in my office and I told the CEO, hey, I'm thinking about going back to college. And she said, well, why exactly? I said, well, honestly, I want to make more money. And so she gave me a raise. So I still don't have a degree. Um, but working in the substance abuse field as an individual, my experience with mental health challenges, whenever things would come up mentally, everyone there thought I was using, and I wasn't. And so it came a point in time where I finally stopped working there, wasn't sure what my next step was, and I got a call about a position as a peer specialist. And I had no idea how that would change the entire trajectory of my life and my recovery journey. So I began working for JBS Mental Health here in Birmingham, which also is the organization that had the mental health center that was connected to the homeless shelter that I was in. And I thought that was like, wow, like I'm working for them and they helped me. So through that process, I really learned a lot about recovery. I learned a lot about the fact that we all have different struggles, but one thing that most people have in common, if not all, is that we want to belong. We want to be a part of something. We want to be accepted for ourselves. Hence the Hello Kitty background today. And through working for JBS, I got connected to so many amazing individuals who would share their stories with me, other peer specialists, clients, consumers that I was working with. And it was just amazing for me to see someone who I'd seen when I began in this field and hear them tell me, hey, I was at a drop in center for 20 plus years. I never spoke, I never did anything until the day when a peer specialist came in and that spark of hope was ignited. And looking at where they are now, it's just amazing. But what's even more amazing for me is even in this moment, like I'm right here, I'm with y'all, I'm sharing my story, but sometimes it's hard for me to really fathom how far I've come. So without a degree, blessed with jobs that have just totally changed my life and my perspective. And JBS, like I said, had been a part of my story. And so I stepped out on a limb in 2022 and applied for a job with a peer run organization here in Alabama called Wings Across Alabama. They were looking for someone to help them get their warm line operational 24/7. So I got that position. And that was another turning point in my life. And so by that time, 2022, certified peer specialist, certified peer specialist certified peer specialist state trainer on dozens of committees and things like that. And it was just amazing for me. And I thought that was it. Like, oh my gosh, I work for Wings Across Alabama. Well, as you all have already heard, currently I am and have been since October of last year, the acting executive director of Wings Across Alabama. And I'm still each day in awe of where I am in my life, in my career, in my recovery. But one of the biggest things that's important for me as a peer worker is to never forget that feeling of hopelessness that I felt, that feeling of hopelessness that there's still individuals feeling today. I have the opportunity to travel a lot and go to different events and set up our Wings Across Alabama table. And a few months ago, I had an encounter with an individual that really touched me. So I'm going through my little spiel about Wings Across Alabama, and the woman I'm speaking with, she stops me. She says, wait, I'll be right back. I got to get somebody. And she goes and gets a friend of hers. And so I start my whole little spiel over again, and I can see this woman's just her whole facial expression changed. Her face lit up, and she looked at me and she said, "You have mental illness?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do." Um, and I'm like, "You can do this too. Like you can become a peer. You can utilize all the things you've dealt with in your life to empower somebody else." And she was just so excited. And in that moment, I made a mental note that no matter what I do or what position I get or the tables that I have the opportunity to have a seat at, to always speak for those who are still suffering. It's great. It's a blessing that we are where we are today, but we can never forget the individuals who are still at this very moment struggling, suffering, feeling hopeless, feeling alone, feeling as if no one cares, no one understands. And so with what I'm doing right now with Wings Across Alabama, that's a part of, the mission of what I purpose to do, my vision, as we continue to soar, which is something I came up with, soar, supporting our aligned recoveries. That's what it's all about for me, whether someone is dealing with mental health challenges, substance use disorder, or both. Recovery is possible. That's my mantra. That's my jam. Knowing that recovery is possible and it looks different for each individual, but to be able to have a safe space like with this is so beautiful what City Voices is doing with this support group, and it's needed, it's necessary. And the fact that you all are here today is proof of that. Like you're saying, Canada, California, New York, Louisiana, Alabama, after a work day on a Monday, individuals coming together. Why? To support each other, to support each other. So that's really the gist of my story. But I will say this: when I talk about support, um, one of the things that we've started doing at Wings Across Alabama is, again, not forgetting the individuals who are supporting others. So we have a support group called the SOS group, which stands for Supporting Our Supporters. I love acronyms, if you don't know by now. But that one has been great. We also started one called the ASAP group, Additional Support and Prevention. And it's just been amazing for me knowing where I've come from to be where I am today and to realize that I still need support. I still need support. I still need peer support. I have my own personal peer supporters that I call when I'm going through things. And that's something else that's really important to me because, of course, I know individuals um, who may work, let's say, for the Alabama Department of Mental Health or NAMI or things like that, who have these positions where we look up to them. But guess what? They still need support. So if you take anything away from my story, from my life, from my journey, is that recovery is possible and that we all need support. We all need support, no matter what you're doing in your life. We all need support, and to be able to be there for other like-minded individuals who at one point were hopeless and just stuck to be where we are today is just amazing. And it's a blessing. And I'm just grateful for this opportunity to share my little story about a little girl from Alabama who loves Hello Kitty, um, but who has been given the opportunity to share, to encourage, and empathetically equip others to know that they can recover as well.